Hi, her Bible listeners. This is Jenny Steinbach, and I'm excited to introduce you to Emily Ley. She lives not too far from me. We're both Florida girls.
Yeah.
And we are talking today about her new book that's coming out and about her walk with God. Emily, I'd love it if you could share a little bit about of your journey and how you came to Christ.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here and excited to talk with you. I am a mom to three kids. So I have a 12-year-old little boy named Brady and 8-year-old twins, Tyler and Caroline. Been married for 15 years almost, and we live in Pensacola. I'm also the founder of a company called Simplified. We make planners and organizational tools for busy women. And then somewhere amidst all of that, I write books. So
That's
I'm
amazing.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. My journey with God, my journey with Christ, I was raised in a family who was phenomenal and wonderful, but we did not go to church every weekend. Like it was not, we did not have necessarily a church family. I really learned about God from my parents and my grandmother in particular, and it was more God was more in our home. We just did not have that. I did not have that church upbringing. So to be very honest with you, I've always been a little nervous in my faith to share it with others because I don't speak the quote unquote language that some Christian writers speak or can write like. And I found for a long time, I was worried that was a weakness of mine. But what I found is it's actually the opposite, that I speak in a way that I hope is inviting to people who may not know God, who may be very new in their faith. And as I grew up, I was very fortunate to have some wonderful friends who invited me into a church family, and now we are so fortunate to have that. But writing a devotional, I was nervous to write a devotional. I felt a lot of pressure to quote unquote get it right, and make sure that I represented my faith, in a proper way. It was life changing for me to write Sure as the Sunrise, though. I learned a lot. I grew a lot. I feel like God taught me a lot through writing, which he tends to do. I'm so excited it's out in the world and people can read it.
So, could you share from one of the devotionals that touched you and, like, as an example?
Yeah. Well, the book actually came to be, and I think this is one of the devotions that we tell the story of in the book, but during COVID. So if you remember those times, I had three kids at home I was trying to do virtual school with. We were doing virtual kindergarten at the time. That was fun. Times two. I owned a company that made planners, and that was the year all the plans got canceled. So it was a lot. My husband's also an entrepreneur, and I remember every day I would wake up and just feel like I was on a hamster wheel. I was scared too. Like I was really scared for my parents' health. I was scared for big decisions we were making. And we live on Pensacola Bay. And so one day I woke up and I walked out on my back porch and I just thought, God, like, what is going on? Have you forgotten about us? Like, what is happening? And I just had this very like visceral, one of the very few times I've had this experience of just hearing God say to me, Emily, look, I brought the sun up. Like the sun, we see the sunrise on our in our backyard over the water every day. And it's such a beautiful thing. And I just remember hearing like I brought the sun up. I do it every single day, even when it's raining, even when you can't see it. And I do it with the same enthusiasm I did on the very first day. And I was so struck by that, by like, there was this thing that was happening that I could count on that wasn't going to change with a pandemic. It wasn't going to change with the season or human emotion or how somebody was feeling that day. It was always true. And I just thought, I need more moments like this. I need more moments of grounding my feet in something that isn't going to move when I have to do whatever it is I have to do during my day, whether it's the hamster wheel of virtual school and running a company, or it's just a normal day like now. And so that's where I was kind of felt very called to write this book, to give that moment or to facilitate that moment for other women who were dealing with who knows what in their lives.
I love that because we were all facing a lot of change and interrupted plans. And so
Yeah.
I'm a planner, so I totally get that. And what advice would you give people to encourage them to trust God with the change of plans?
There have been times in my life where I've gotten kind of mad at God and I've thought in my head, like, God, if you would just listen to me, I have a really good plan. Like, I've got this all worked out, you know? And God, I feel like He's always like, that's cute. That's not how this works. And so I've had to learn over the years to give things over. And for me, that looks like a lot of prayer and asking God to take things from me that I would really like handle myself. My husband and I went through many years of infertility before our kids. That was an experience where I learned I had to just say, God, whatever this is going to be, is going to be, and I'm going to find you in it. I'm going to find myself in it. And so I think we just have to practice the act of handing things over. And sometimes for me, that's really physical, if you will. It's not just saying, okay, God, you've got it. That doesn't do anything for me. It has to be a prayer with my hands open, saying, God, there is this thing that I am clinging to and I'm holding so tightly to it. And I if you would let me, I could control it really well, but I know that's not how this works. And so I need to give it over. I need to hand it to you, you know?
I really identify with that.
Don't we all?
Yes. Handing it over is
Yeah.
such a valuable thing because we're not in control anyway. It's we think we are, but we're not.
One devotion that comes to mind is the birth of my first son. We went through a really scary pregnancy. We finally got pregnant with him. And at 18 weeks, they told me there was a slew of things wrong, many of which were not compatible with life. And I spent everything was unknown. And they said we wouldn't know till he was born. And I spent the next however many weeks in absolute sheer terror and learning to hand that over to God. The life of my child was pretty life-changing and terrifying. But I remember I ended up having a C-section, and I remember laying there on the table and turning my hands open like that and saying to God, "Whoever this baby is gonna be, he's gonna be, and I'm scared, but I'm ready, and I'm gonna love him to pieces." To date, none of those things have come to fruition. He is a miracle, but that was probably the first moment that I had realized you have to hand over the most sacred of things if you're really gonna trust.
I love that. And I've
Yeah.
had 4 boys, so
Have you?
yes, they're
Oh,
all young adults now, but I'd love to chat a little bit about her Bible because it's an audio Bible in women's voices,
mm,
and we are passionate about women taking their view of themselves about what God says about them and not what our culture says about them. And so if you could tell me just a little feedback you have on that, or what are your
yeah.
thoughts?
Well, I think it's beautiful. I think also the idea of it being audio is fantastic. I am a big audio Bible listener, audio book listener, podcast listener, mostly because my hands are usually busy. So I like to find things that I can fit in, with other things. But I think specifically women have a very unique life experience and voice. And I think it's wonderful that you're focusing on that particular experience and bringing the voice of God to life.
You're reminding me of what it was like as a mom with young kids
Yeah.
and all the busyness. And I had almost very little to almost no time in the Word, but I needed it more than ever. And
Mhm.
so that's part of what I'm hoping is that women
Yeah.
it will fit easily into their lives.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and if you see this on video, you can see my little Walter dog behind me. I love taking him for a walk and listening to things. I love when I'm emptying the dishwasher listening to things. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We have so many things on our plate that unfortunately time with God can be the thing that falls off. If you can find a way to work even just a little bit of time in to root yourself, like we were saying, in those things that never ever change. It feels like something that's can be hard to work in, but it's so necessary to work in.
Yeah, we've had some moms say that they listen in the car with the kids, and the kids are enjoying
Yes.
it too. Another question I wanted to ask you is how you stay grounded, because I love that term you used,
Yeah.
in light of your success?
Oh, thank you. I never in a million years thought this little idea I had in a guest room would turn into what it turned into. God clearly had plans for it. When I started my company, so I have a master's degree in nonprofit management, and I was climbing that corporate ladder and working at a university and doing development, and I loved it. But I also, my mom was a teacher. I really wanted to have the flexibility that she'd had with my brother and I as a mother. And I wasn't a mom yet, but I knew that I couldn't drive an hour to work every day, work 60 hours a week, drive an hour home. And that works for some people. It just wasn't what I wanted. And so I decided I was really going to create something that would give me that, if you will, you know? And so the reason I started my company is because I wanted flexibility as a mom. That was it. It was to bring in a little extra income to help at home. And it was to have a creative outlet for myself where I could serve and do and love on people and use my creative energy. But it was never to do any of the things that we've done, you know? And so when things start to feel off kilter, like when I start to feel like I'm too busy to go and volunteer in the Halloween party at school, or I am too busy to pick my kids up that day, that's when I know I've got my eye on the wrong thing. And I have to constantly come back to like, you started this company to have flexibility as a mom. Do you have that? Because if you don't, something's not working and you got your eye on the wrong thing. That's been my gut check over the years. When things are going really well, like I just came back from an 8-week sabbatical because I just needed it after 15 years. I'm in a really good place now. Like I feel like I got a lot of clarity during those few weeks about where God wanted me to be and how he wanted me to spend my time and how he didn't want me to spend my time. So I think it's important to always have that gut check, whatever it is for you, about what matters most. And that's what helps you get back on track when you get off.
I love that you
Mhm.
just got back from a sabbatical. I'm going on one in two
Good for
weeks.
you. Oh, I just
Yes.
got goosebumps. It was so good for me. I hope it's good for you too.
Yes. So I would love for you to speak about that. So what was the clarity that you got? And
Oh
what
my
are you going
God.
to change as a result of that?
So I was out for 8 weeks. I deleted all social media. I rerouted my email. I didn't really have access to anything. And by the way, it is such a luxury because I have a phenomenal team of women who work with me and handled everything. The first 2 weeks, I slept the majority of every day. My husband was even like, "Are you okay?" Something like, "You're sleeping a lot." And I said, "I think my body is literally recovering from the last 15 years of staying up late and working hard and giving it all I had." After those 2 weeks, I found myself looking for new ways of exercising my creativity and this thirst to like fill myself up with things that were inspiring and encouraging and grounding and all of that. I started taking piano lessons. I don't even know how to read music. I had never played a musical instrument. I just started doing some things that I've never had time for. I kind of enjoyed cooking, which is a brand new thing for me. I cook because people in my house have to eat a couple times a day, but I've never really enjoyed it. It's always just been like another thing I have to get done. And during that time that I was without so many other things to worry about, I found myself really enjoying it and having fun with it and trying new things. The biggest thing I took away from the time away was God gave me a specific skill set. He surrounded me with some incredible people who have completely different skill sets. He wants me to use my skills and protect that creative energy rather than spinning all the other wheels. I don't need to be involved in everything. That's what they're for. And so I really just came back and said, these are the meetings I'm not going to anymore because I just don't need to be there. You guys got it. I started a Substack, which is like a new writing platform, and it's been so life giving to write there. I'm going to have a new list of yeses and a new list of nos because I think God's pointing me in a direction that only I can do. The other things, like there are people around me who are so good at that. They can do those things. So that I don't know why that was so hard for me to learn, but it was.
Because we're planners.
We are, and we like to have the tight grip, you know?
Yeah. So if one of our listeners has a dream that they haven't really stepped into, how would
Yeah.
you encourage them?
Oh gosh. Well, I would say if there's something you can't stop thinking about, to me, that's typically God like nudging me. If there's something that won't get out of my brain, whether it's a change I need to make or something I need to address or a goal that I just keep thinking like that would be cool. Like I feel like I'm being called to that. That's usually a good sign that I need to do something about it. I'll also say that something I've learned in business and in life is that balance, if you will, is a lot like riding a bike. You're constantly shifting your weight from left to right to keep from falling on your face. And so for me, that'll look like seasons. So a season can last years, it can last hours. I'm leaning really hard into work sometimes because I have to, or I'm leaning really hard into family because I have to. I find that when I've leaned really hard this way, it's okay to lean really hard the other way because it just means you're kind of staying upright. I dealt with a lot of mommy guilt over the years of working at all because there was a time where I had the option to, by some blessing, not work and to be at home with my children full time. But I didn't feel that was my calling. And it is for some people, but I didn't feel like that was it for me. And it wasn't until my kids got older and they could verbalize, "Hey mom, this is cool that you did this," or "I saw you do that," or "I saw you on in the magazine," or whatever, that I realized, oh, they're learning something from that, you know? So all of that to say, I think my best encouragement would be if God is speaking to you and you can't get it off your mind, lean in and realize that seasons are okay. It's just how life works.
That's great. I love that. And I so identify with what you've been sharing because God wouldn't let me go on her Bible. And
Yeah.
every morning I woke up and it's like, well, what are we going to do to help make this a reality?
Yeah.
And because it doesn't exist in the form that I would like to see it.
Right.
And then the long-term view is, now that we've completed English, is to coach women to record their languages
Oh,
for more languages.
that's so beautiful. I love that mission. It's been something that's really been important to simplify the last like year or two to widen our table, if you will, and like include more holidays and more things in our paper in our planners and bring more women to the table who maybe don't speak or look or live like me to make our table wider. So I love that.
It's been so great to meet you, Emily, and hear more of
You.
your heart. And I love what you're doing, and I'm excited about women in other nations and languages being able to enjoy what you've been producing.
Thank you so much. It's been so nice to talk to you too.
And yeah, so thanks for sharing. And I'm sure the Her Bible listeners will enjoy it. And thanks for inspiring us.